In 1968, the Beatles traveled to India to study meditation with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. They were searching for spiritual enlightenment, but during their stay, something unexpected happened. One that would inspire one of John Lennon's finest songs. The song was about a woman who meditated so intensely that she withdrew from the world entirely. What happened next is the story of Dear Prudence. In February 1968, the Beatles arrived in Rishikesh to study with the Maharishi. Among the spiritual seekers there was Prudence Farrow, the sister of actress Mia Farrow. She was devoted to meditation, perhaps more devoted than anyone else in the camp. But as the weeks passed, her devotion became obsession. By late March, Prudence had withdrawn entirely. She spent her days sequestered in her room, meditating, convinced that if she meditated harder, longer, and faster than everyone else, she'd reach enlightenment first. The other Beatles were genuinely worried about her well-being, so John and George were assigned as her spiritual buddies, tasked with reaching out, encouraging her to rejoin the group, to eat, and to socialize. So what was actually happening in that room? Well, years later, John reflected on the whole strange situation in a 1980 Playboy interview. A song about Mia Farrow's sister, who seemed to go slightly barmy, meditating too long, and wouldn't come out of the little hut that we were living in. They selected me and George to try and bring her out because she would trust us. If she'd been in the West, they would have put her away. She'd been locked in for 3 weeks and wouldn't come out, trying to reach God quicker than anybody else. That was the competition in Maharishi's camp. Who was going to get cosmic first? But the other Beatles had been there trying to reach her day after day. Paul was there for those moments, and he remembered it with a very British sense of humor. Prudence Farrow got an attack of the horrors, paranoia, and identity crisis, and wouldn't come out of her Butlin's chalet. We all got a little bit worried about her, so we went up there and knocked. "Hi, Prudence. We all love you. You're wonderful." But nobody could persuade her out. Now, for context, Paul was joking when he said Butlin's Chalet. Butlin's is a chain of cheap British holiday camps. He was making fun of the ashram's modest accommodations. But the point stands. They were genuinely concerned and genuinely trying to help. And that's when John decided to do something beautiful. He wrote a song, a gentle, encouraging song designed to coax her out of isolation and back into life. Fascinatingly, Prudence never heard the song while they were in India. John didn't play it for her through the door or serenade her from the outside. She first heard the finished recording when the White Album was released in November of 1968. What makes the song musically remarkable, it uses a finger-picking technique that John had just learned. One morning they sat together and Donovan showed John a finger-picking pattern, which John quickly picked up and adapted into his own style. John was a fast learner. He mastered the technique in just 2 days. And when he returned to the ashram and sat down to write Dear Prudence in late March, he used that exact style. The folk musician who taught him, Donovan himself, remembered exactly what emerged from those lessons. Paul was walking around while John was doing his lessons with me, and out of the picking came Dear Prudence. The technique became the song, and the song became a masterpiece. It was recorded in August of 1968 at Trident Studios in London, but there was a significant problem. Ringo Starr had temporarily quit the Beatles. At the time, Ringo felt like an outsider, like the other three were getting on better without him, so he stepped back. So for that song, Paul McCartney played the drums. It's one of the most sophisticated production choices on the White Album. And John Lennon knew it was special. Years later, he would name Dear Prudence as one of his personal favorite Beatles songs. That's rare for him. But music historians noticed something about this song that makes John's assessment make sense. In his definitive book on the Beatles, music critic Tim Riley pinpointed exactly why this track stands out. While Lennon regularly wrote about childhood and nature, nowhere else does he sound as composed as he does here, as infatuated with the innocence he's singing about. It counts amongst Lennon's finest songs. And that word, composed, is key. Most of John's songs were driven by emotion or wit, but this one was driven by something quieter and something more mature. Because on the surface, Dear Prudence is about Prudence Farrow, a specific moment in time at an ashram in India, a song written to coax one woman out of her room. But here's what critics missed at the time. The song was never really just about her. Music critic Mark Hertsgaard, who spent years analyzing Lennon's work, recognized that this song was reaching for something much larger. Author Mark Hertsgaard finds Dear Prudence typical of Lennon's work in that it transcends its origins to provide a wider message. He says that the lyrics further an idea first espoused by Lennon in Nowhere Man in 1965, namely, "Don't hide from life, you have reason to smile, Wake up and play your part in the grand scheme of things. It's worth noting that John wasn't making fun of Prudence for meditating. The song isn't judgmental at all. In fact, he's gently suggesting that total isolation has a cost, even isolation in pursuit of spirituality. He was trying to point out the value in connecting with the world around you as well, with nature and life and other people. The lyrics invite her to see the sun and look around at all the smiles. It's an invitation to balance, to pursue inner work without losing your engagement with the external world. But beneath the gentleness, there's something unsettling. Pop Matters magazine identified an ethereal, almost foreboding quality that most people miss. The most distinctive aspect of Dear Prudence is its ethereal, almost foreboding quality, something which is quite uncommon in the Beatles' discography. At first, Dear Prudence seems nothing more than a low-key ballad wrapped in sadness. Its strength lies in how it builds up to a fantastic finish that banishes the negative atmosphere, just like the sun breaking through on a cloudy day. There's a shadow beneath the gentleness, an unease and a darkness, and that's what makes the song so powerful. It's not just a love song or an encouragement song, it's a warning wrapped in beauty. When the song was released on the White Album in November of 1968, it didn't chart as a single. It was considered a pleasant album track, beautiful but pretty much overlooked. For years, it remained in the shadow of other Beatles songs. But in 1983, something unexpected happened. The punk goth band Susie Sue and the Banshees covered it. They didn't just cover the song, they transformed it. They brought out what was always there beneath the surface: the darkness, the menace, and the unsettling beauty. Their version reached number 3 on the UK singles chart, and then suddenly Dear Prudence was everywhere. Meanwhile, on the other side of the musical spectrum, something else was happening. Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead became obsessed with the song. Between 1979 and his death in 1995, he performed extended improvisational versions of Dear Prudence at concerts across America. In 2010, Rolling Stone ranked Dear Prudence at number 63 on their list of the Beatles' 100 greatest songs. But perhaps the most meaningful appreciation came from the person the song was written about. In a 2015 Rolling Stone interview, Prudence Farrow was asked to reflect on the song decades later, and here's what she said. It epitomizes what the 60s were about in many ways. What it's saying is very beautiful. It's very positive. I think it's an important song. I thought it was one of their least popular and more obscure songs. I feel that it does capture that essence of the chorus, that slightly exotic part of being in India, where we went through that silence and meditation. Dear Prudence is a song about isolation and an invitation to connection. Yes, it's about a woman meditating alone in her room in India, but it's also about all of us. It's about the balance between inner works and outer engagement, the sweet spot between spiritual seeking and human connection. It's crazy to think if Donovan hadn't shown John that finger-picking pattern, maybe the song would never have been written. After all, the song was about a woman he barely even knew. And it's wild to think that it was built layer by layer in the studio by only 3 of the Beatles, and it ended up being one of Lennon's finest songs. It's the song that taught Prudence to eventually come out and join the rest of the world, and in the end, teaches all of us something too.